like me, you're an avid fan of live sim games, you've probably heard of Paralives in the last few years. However, it's been 5 years since the game's initial release, so a lot of us have forgotten about it or just don't really keep up with it anymore. So, where actually is Paralives now? You live and then you die. But at least do it in a nice house. If you've never heard of the game, or maybe you've just forgotten and you need a bit of a refresher, Paralives is an in-development indie life sim comparable to the Sims franchise. I would name other sort of life sims that it's comparable to that are already out, but the Sims team kind of have a monopoly currently on that kind of game, so I can't really give you any more examples. Paralives so far have confirmed a multitude of features, including their life simulation mode, their build mode, and their character creation mode, lovingly referred to as their Paramaker. Paralives will be released on Steam for both PC and Mac, first releasing in an early access state. This might also be referred to as a beta or an alpha state. If you don't know what early access or beta or alpha is, it basically means the game might have some bugs or some missing features, but it's still in a playable state. It usually lets the development team get feedback from real players, and it can also let them see how it's going to run on a variety of different systems. The intent is always for the game to later have a full release. But some games do sort of just get stuck in early access hell. Games like Phasmophobia or Traveller's Rest, they've both been in early access for years and years. Unfortunately, there are no current plans to release the game on console. This could change in the future, but it's just not something they're focusing on at the moment. So no Switch port, no PS4, PS5 port, no Xbox port, no plans for any sort of console port. Some people have complained about this, but I do think it's important to note that The Sims 4, when it first came out, wasn't actually on console. It wasn't until 2017 that the console release for The Sims 4 came out, and that was nearly 3 years after the initial release. And that's with the backing of EA and Maxis, two very big companies. So I think, cut Paralives a little bit of slack when it comes to console ports. It could happen at a later date, you never know. But I don't think we should be too angry at them at this point. Paralives will not be free to play, as a lot of games seemingly are now, but they do promise that there will never ever be any paid DLC, only free expansions. This is really good, obviously, but it is also important to note that currently, as of when I wrote the research for this, there has been no price announced. Obviously, there's speculation. I personally think it will be between 30 to 60, probably towards the higher end of that. I don't see it being less than 30 just because of how massive the scope of the game is, and I don't see it being more than sort of 65 at a push, because that would alienate a large portion of their core audience, in my opinion. The game itself is being worked on by a small team of 12, which was even smaller at the start. It was actually originally a solo project, which is really cool. It's being developed in the Unity game engine, if that means anything to you. I don't really know anything about game engines, but I know Unity is a very, very popular one. And it also doesn't have any publisher associated with it, so there's no bigger company giving them money or anything or telling them what to do. It is quite literally just the Paralives team. Just as a quick little note, I wasn't exactly sure what section this really fit into, so I just popped it at the end of this one. But the game is going to be available in quite a few languages from the start, and there will also be support for users to translate as well. But the languages that will be included from the start include English, French, Simplified Chinese, Latin American Spanish, European Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, European Portuguese, German, Italian, and Polish. So, a pretty good list of languages for such a small team, I would argue. Created by and for the community. As I've sort of said in the last section, Paralives has a massive scope on their future features, absolutely massive scope. And these can all be arranged into the three main categories: their life simulation mode, their build mode, and their Paramaker. The life simulation mode will feature an open world small town. At launch this will be a single town, but they do claim that more worlds and even a world creation tool, possibly like some of the tools available in the first 3 Sims games or Twisted Mexie's Create a World mod, will become available at a later time. There will be advanced personalities for parafolks, pets, including cats, dogs and horses, transportation, including cars, bikes, and boats, weather effects and seasons, and a simple gibberish language called Parli. So obviously that is sort of like Simlish. For the build mode, there will be gridless construction with optional snapping and grid for alignment purposes, which is chef's kids. There'll be curved and straight walls of any lengths, resizable, stackable, and flippable furniture, boathouses that you can build, which I thought was really random for them to highlight so prominently in a little list of features, but that's pretty cool. There will also be a colour wheel, pre-made swatches, and pattern customization, which I imagine will sort of be like the Sims 3 creator style system. There'll be pre-made houses and empty resizable lots, and also terrain tools. In their Paramaker, or the character creation mode, there'll be a colour wheel for hair, skin, eyes, clothes, etc. A variety of detailed body and face sliders, a height slider, the ability to use any outfit regardless of your Parafolk's gender or how the outfit is tagged. There'll be precise tattoo, mole, and scar placement. There'll be realistic fat and muscle sliders. There'll be customizable patterns for some clothing items. They make it very clear on the website that this is some clothing items and not all, so I thought I'd make that very clear to you. And there'll also be a variety of facial and body hair for Parafolks of any gender, which is pretty cool. They do also highlight some features which are not planned for the initial full release, but they could come at a later date. This includes active jobs in schools, so there will be jobs in education at launch, but you will not be able to follow your Parafolk there, so it will be like a rabbit hole system. There will not be occult paras, so zombies, werewolves, fairies, vampires, aliens, like the plant sims, you know what I mean. Those guys, there won't be any of them. Maybe at a later date, but not planned as of right now. And there will also be no first person mode or WASD/arrow keys control mode. Core systems working. Paralives team are really transparent about the game's development and where they're sort of at with it. On their website, they have a whole section outlining the development month by month for all of the 5 years it's been in the works. Their website, by the way, will be in the description down below if you want to have a proper look at it, because I cannot possibly go into everything in this video because, wow, they have a lot of detail on their website. They also have a Notion page, which, if you don't know what Notion is, it's kind of like, I guess, an online planner, but it's so customizable that you can kind of use it for anything. And their Notion page specifically outlines in detail every single feature, no matter how big or small, that has been added for each category. Which of these are in progress, which need to be added before early access, which of these will be added during the early access, and which of these will not be added until after the release. So things like an auto roofing tool or occult parrots. Whilst, as I said, I will not go into every single feature or new addition because we would be here for literally forever. I will highlight some of the more general moments from the last 5 years. In 2019, Alex quit his job to start working on his game ideas as a solo developer, creating the first playable prototypes that were focused around the build mode. It was around mid-2019 that the Paralives social media pages were also created, and Alex began to release sneak peeks of features, the first of which being the object resizing feature with this video. In October of 2019, the first character creator prototype was created, and at this time Alex also recruited Leia, a 3D artist, making Paralives no longer a solo project. In December, another 3D artist, Roxanne, was also recruited. In the beginning of 2020, the team worked on adding more features to both the Paramaker and the build mode. In May, the Paralives team revealed their first townie, Maggie Vohan. I'm not entirely certain how that's pronounced. My apologies. And they also created her in-game lot, Maggie's Loft. Also in May, Christine, a marketing and communication specialist, was recruited, but also around this time, Roxanne did sadly leave the team. From this point onwards, they were hiring people like crazy. So many people got added to this team, including Anna, a programmer and game designer in June, Alice, a 3D animator in June, Jeremy, a programmer and game designer in July, and Sonia, a 3D artist intern in October. And in July of 2020, they also revealed their second townie, Sebastian. So just as a quick note before we delve into 2021, in 2021, the Paralives team began holding monthly community brainstorming sessions. So this would be on things like aging, autonomy, work, education, whatever they wanted the community's opinion on, they would hold these. And these were held monthly until May of 2022, with the exception of December 2021. I don't really know why there wasn't one in December of 2021, or at least there wasn't any mention of it in the development timeline. Yeah, that was just a quick note. So this is happening every single month. I just didn't want to have to repeat myself so many times. In March, Etienne, a programmer, was recruited. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that name correctly. In May, 2 more people were recruited, bringing the team total up to 10. This included Camille, a producer, and Andre, a music composer and sound effect designer. In June of 2021, Paralives was featured in the Wholesome Direct, which, the Wholesome Direct, if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like a Nintendo Direct or like a games showcase stream, but for wholesome or cozy games on a much smaller scale. And their section showcased some of the house building tools, and along with this they also released an 11-minute long house building gameplay video. In October of 2021, a new 3D environment artist and a communications director were recruited. It doesn't mention their names in the development timeline, and they do have a little section with like the team and their names, but there was a couple people in there whose names I didn't recognise, so I wasn't sure how to match these up. So yeah, I'm not sure of these people's names. Also in October though, they joined TikTok, which I'm surprised they weren't on TikTok before, but they were now. In December, they created the first child Parafolk, Eli, and introduced the third adult Townie, Marvin. They also showcased an overview of their updated Paramaker in a video. In May of 2022, they shared their full development roadmap up until the early access of the game. In June, they created a localization system to support multiple languages in the game. They also showcased a Paramaker feature to tuck or untuck shirts. Yes, that is a very small feature for me to mention, but when I read that, I was so excited, so I thought, I have to tell you. In August, they also showed a sneak peek of the interaction queue and its reordering feature, and they also shared a sneak peek of the censored effect. So like, you know, in The Sims, when your sim gets in the shower and they go pixely, it sort of Paralives answers to that. Throughout 2023, they shared sneak peeks of an insane amount of features. Like, I cannot name all of them, we would be here forever. But this included things like the skill system, modding tools, in-game food, the soundtrack, the in-game language, the different life stages, autonomy and death, skin improvements, and so much more. I literally, if I sat here and went through every single sneak peek, this would be like 3 hours long. This year, in 2024, they have continued to share insane amounts of sneak peeks. And in February, they officially announced that 2025, next year, will be the release of the early access. There's no month or specific date, but next year, by December 31st next year, we will have a playable version of Paralives in the public eye, which is so exciting. And as of researching for this video, August of 2024, they are continuing to develop new features, improve old features, work on the soundtrack, and just design tons of different aspects of the game. Made possible by you. After hearing about this incredible game and the pure scope of it, you might be wondering, how is this actually being funded? They aren't associated with a large publisher or even a small publisher that could help them, you know, fund the game and pay their team of 12 people. They're an independent studio with no previous works and no existing reputation prior to 2019. How is this being funded? Well, it's being funded by the community that believes in it. Paralives has utilised a Patreon page since the very beginning of 2019, when the game was first in the works. And Patreon, if you're not aware, it's sort of a monetization service that allows like artists and content creators, game developers, etc. to run a subscription service to sell digital products or provide rewards and perks to its subscribers across different tiers. So for example, take a YouTuber. They might have a Patreon that has 3 different tiers, one that's £1, one that's £2, and one that's £3. The one that's £1 might get like a little shout out at the end of their video. The one that's £2 might get that little shout out and also early access to the video. And the one that's £3 might get that little shout out, the early access, and behind the scenes content. So that's sort of the idea. For Paralives, as of August of 2024, their Patreon has 5 different tiers. Adult for £3 per month, Elder for £4.50 per month, Ancient for £8.50 per month, Hero for £17 per month, and Legend for £42.50 per month. And as of researching this, their Patreon has over 7,000 paid members. And according to Patreon themselves, I cannot confirm any of these numbers, but according to Patreon themselves, it brings them in $30,000 per month, which is kind of crazy. I don't know what sort of taxes or anything they have to pay on that, so I don't know how much they themselves actually take in, but that's quite a big number. But what do the members get? Why would you pledge your allegiance, I suppose, to this game? So they say in their About section on the Patreon that Patreon allows them to easily involve everyone in the game's development, and their patrons get the opportunity to access exclusive development logs, discuss ideas, and vote in community polls. To be more specific, each tier has certain perks they receive based off of the amount that they pay. So the adult tier receives their name in the game credits, access to exclusive posts on Patreon, community polls, and a patron Discord role and access to a patron Discord channel. The elder tier receives all rewards from the previous tier, HD and 4K wallpapers, and a free copy of the Paralives soundtrack upon release of the game. Now, I just want to say I'm unsure if this refers to the early access release or the full release. It doesn't state. I would assume the full release, because, the soundtrack could change a little bit between the early access and the full release. But I thought it was just important to say it doesn't state which version of the release you would receive that in. The Ancient tier receives all the rewards from the previous tier, their name in the credits under Super Patron. They have a Super Patron Discord role and access to a developer channel where they can access work-in-progress screenshots. The Hero tier receives all the rewards from previous tiers. They get to name a randomly generated townie or pet. They receive an exclusive Paralives postcard signed by the team every 6 months. They also receive access to a Discord channel to ask questions to the developers. The Legend tier, the most expensive tier, receives all the rewards from the previous tiers. The optional opportunity to be recreated as a townie that can randomly appear in the game. The ability to name an item in the game, so like they could name an oven, I don't know, Gav's oven. And then they also receive a signed poster upon release of the game. Again, it doesn't say if this is the full release or early access. I would just assume the full release though. It is important to note though that for the Legend tier, all of the exclusive ones, so the recreated townie, the ability to name an item, and the signed poster, you can only get these after pledging the Legend tier for 3 months. I understand why they'd do this. It's probably worth trying to stop people, pledging for a month and then binning it off just so they can receive the coolest rewards, really. Shut up and take my money. Obviously, people have hope in Paralives as proved through their Patreon, but what is the general consensus? Are people hopeful and excited for a breath of fresh air in the live sim genre? Or are they scared of receiving an empty, buggy game with goals too big in practicality? I think the main thing to point out when talking about Paralives discussion is just how reliant it almost seems on the Sims franchise or other up-and-coming life simulation games like Inzoi or Life by... well, I was going to say or Life by You, but Life by You did get cancelled, so maybe not Life by You anymore. RIP Life by You. Obviously, this is no fault of Paralives itself or its team, but so many of the discussions I saw upon simply searching the game's name on Twitter is literally just them comparing it to other games. It seems like it can't escape this comparison, not even just with the Sims franchise, but even with other up-and-coming life sims like Inzoi. They just cannot escape it. This, I think, is a larger issue, really, within the live sim sort of fan community. And honestly, maybe a lot of games at large, a lot of games that get produced sort of just seem to be boiled down as a comparison to something at this point. But, due to EA's near monopoly on this genre of game, it's kind of impossible to escape the sim sphere of it all. Outside of the comparison and criticism, people seem to mostly be hopeful and excited, but it has been a while the game's been in development, so some people are a little bit annoyed about that, but most people are understanding to the fact that it is still a very small team. So that is all I have for you today. Now, this was the first time I have done something like this, really. So normally I'm just making an absolute fool of myself on stream. So this was weird, but this was quite fun. I like stuff like this. I like looking into things and researching them. So maybe we'll get another thing like this. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you so much. If you did enjoy this, if you did enjoy it, leave it a like, leave it a comment. maybe leave me a subscribe. If you've got me from my shorts, thank you so much. I don't know how I've managed to get like, I think as of recording this, like 310 subscribers purely off of shorts. That's kind of crazy. My shorts are just me like playing The Sims, wearing an eggplant costume. So thank you. But yeah, I really am hopeful for Paralives personally, and I hope the team really sees fruition from all their efforts. But yeah, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.